Everybody, you guys made it just in the nick of crime. I am Justin. I know a lot of people think that my name is Nick. It is not. It is Justin. And you are in the place where we don't just talk true crime. We're going to break it down piece by piece, lie by lie. And today's case is a teenage girl, a double murder in the performance of a lifetime. As always, we are live on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. So wherever you're watching, wherever you're tuning in from, make sure to hit that follow, smash the like, and get ready to talk about all of this. And for my TikTok friends, make sure to tap that screen. Let's get that to 10,000. We are at 3,500. I know we can do it before I get out of the opener on this whole thing. And real quick, so as you guys know, for my TikTok friends, I always go live on this on YouTube. So if you're watching this, can't stay for the whole thing, want to hear it, you can always go back and catch it on YouTube. And sometimes it's fine. You're just missing some pictures and things like that if you don't jump over to YouTube. Today, I have 3 videos that we're going to play, 3 clips that we're going to play that you're definitely going to want to see. So if you want to jump over to YouTube, if you're on Instagram or Facebook, you'll be able to see them. But if you're on TikTok, if you want to jump over to YouTube, it is the same name, Just in the Nick of Crime. You should be able to get to that from my bio as well. But you're definitely going to want to see what we're going to show you, because we're going to bring you completely up to speed on this case. So, that being said, you all know that we now live in a time where grief oftentimes plays out online. Tragedy gets filtered through TikTok, through Instagram, YouTube. And when the line between mourning and manipulation gets blurred, that's what makes stories like this so chilling. This is the case of Sarah Grace Patrick. She's a teen who the world thought was grieving. And now she's facing life in prison for murder. She's a teenager from Georgia. She seemed heartbroken, cried for her mother on social media, posted tributes, shared selfies, pleaded for answers, and then she was arrested, charged with murdering the same mother she claimed to be grieving. We're going to be packing everything today: the timeline, the investigation, the lies, the eulogy, which is part of what led to her arrest, and the twisted digital trail that turned public sympathy into suspicion. Let's start from the very beginning. Before the mugshot, before the headlines, Sarah Grace Patrick wasn't famous. But like many teenagers, she was very active online, especially on TikTok. She posted dance videos, beauty content, and little moments from her day-to-day life in Carroll County, Georgia. By most accounts, she lived a quiet suburban life in a blended family. Her mother, Kristen Brock, who was 41, and her stepfather, James Brock, who was 45. She lived with them and her little sister, who was 5 at the time of this. And together, the two of them, Kristen and James Brock, had 7 children, some from previous relationships, some shared. Basically, a very large blended household, lots of voices, lots of dynamics, and potentially lots of secrets. What we know is that Sarah lived with them and then her 5-year-old half-sister in a home outside of Carrollton, Georgia. Nothing in her online persona hinted at violence. 0 red flags. No signs of hate or anger, just another typical teenage girl. But according to police, something dark was simmering beneath the surface, and on February 20th, it erupted. So now let's walk through that night and what happened. On early morning, Tuesday, February 20th, 2025, a 911 calls in from Sarah Grace Patrick. She tells the dispatcher that her parents are dead. She sounds scared, shaky, but still calm enough to be able to deliver the facts. Police arrive at the home, and inside they find Kristen and James Brock, both shot to death in their bed, execution style. Their 5-year-old daughter, the youngest person in the house, was the one who discovered the bodies at first. She had gone to the bedroom looking for her parents and found them bleeding and unresponsive. The most heartbreaking detail is that it wasn't Sarah who made the discovery, y'all. It was her little sister, this child who will never be the same. She walked in, she saw the bodies, she ran to Sarah, and that's when Sarah called 911. When the police got there, they noticed some things. There was no sign of forced entry, nothing stolen. So whoever did this, it was likely that the Brocks knew them, or worse, lived with them. It wasn't random, it was personal. And while Sarah presented herself as the one who found them, investigators soon began to suspect otherwise. Because in the hours that followed, Sarah stepped into a new role, the role of the grieving daughter. She posted on social media videos, selfies, statements. She cried in her bedroom on TikTok. She talked about how much she loved her mom, how she couldn't believe that they were gone. She even gave interviews asking for prayers, told people to hold your family close. It felt like she was coping, processing tragedy in the only way she knew how, but behind the scenes, police were already building a case. As investigators combed through evidence, things just didn't really add up. Sarah's story shifted slightly. Sorry, can I talk? Sarah's story shifted slightly in her statements and her comments. Her timeline didn't quite match what the digital records were showing. Phone logs, search history, messages, none of it painted the picture of an innocent daughter who was blindsided by tragedy. But she kept posting. In one TikTok, I showed her crying with mascara-streaked cheeks. Another showed her looking at the camera and mouthing lyrics about loss. It was eerie. It didn't quite feel real. And slowly the internet began to kind of notice. Was she grieving or was she performing? And real quick, because I know we've had a lot of people come in. Since I started on this, please make sure to hit that follow. I'm showing some photos on YouTube, and there's going to be 3 video clips that you all might want to see. And I'm showing the photos that are talking about like the screenshots and things like that from these TikTok videos. So if y'all want to jump over there to see those, make sure to do that. If you don't care about those things, then you can stay right where you are. But just wanted to let you guys know because we've had a lot of people coming in. There's going to be some interesting things that we're going to show here, especially coming up here in just a moment. Like in just a moment. I'll give people a moment to get over there. But while social media was guessing and trying to see what was going on and figure things out, then came a moment that stopped people in their tracks. And that was the funeral. Because Sarah stood there up front in a packed room. She wore a powder blue dress and delivered a tearful eulogy for her mom and stepfather. I'm going to give some people a couple more seconds to arrive. Again, Instagram, Facebook, stay where you are. I'm going to play this eulogy. You will not be able to hear it if you're on TikTok or see it. So I'll give people just another moment, and then we'll go ahead and play that. For those asking my YouTube address, it's the same name on here. It's Just in the Nick of Crime. So youtube.com/ is it at or just Justin? I think it's at Just in the Nick of Crime is where you can see it. Also my bio. For those who want to see it, we're going to go ahead and play that eulogy. And again, if you come in late, you can always rewind it. So let's go.
If you do not know me, my name is Sarah, and I'm Kristen Brock's daughter and James Brock's stepdaughter. I just wanted to say goodbye to my mama and Jamie since we never got the chance to. I was so used to you guys always being here to the point that I never once thought to imagine y'all not being here. I didn't have a single clue how much I needed y'all until now. For James, thank you for all the life lessons you taught me and for being the best bonus dad ever. Your heart will finally be healed in heaven and neither of y'all will be in any pain anymore. Although that gives me so much comfort, your fight was not supposed to end there. And for my mother, everything we went through does not define what kind of person or what kind of mother you were. You were a beautiful, kind soul with so much gratitude. And so gosh dang strong. I want to remember them for who they were and not what happened to them. And be happy for the time we got to spend together and not sad about the time that we don't. I may always and will always be her sunshine, but she will always be my star from up above. And I know at nighttime I can go and look at Mama and Jamie in the sky, and gladly they will save me a seat in heaven like they saved for you. I'm sorry.
What did y'all think about that? Those of you who got to see it, what did y'all think? And by the way, if you jumped over from TikTok and you're on YouTube, please do me a solid, hit that subscribe button. It is the same as a follow, and I'm really trying to grow this channel to 50,000. I'm so close, so please consider doing that. But what did y'all think about that? Okay. She gets up. She calls her mom a light in this world. She said James, her stepdad, stepped up when no one else would. In fact, she called him a bonus dad. And she ended with this line, I'm sorry, I love you. Save me a seat in heaven. Okay. Obviously, that moment was caught on video. We just watched it, and the footage started circulating. It drew 2 very different reactions. Some viewers wept with her. One investigator called it a performance, a speech, not something heartfelt, just performative. The tears, unclear if they were even real. Her final words, I'm sorry, chilled some people, raised some eyebrows, calling it controlled, cold, and calculated. Now, I'll tell you my opinion because I watched it, and then I try to come at this with an open mind, right? Because I'm learning as I'm researching this a lot with you guys, right? Because I'm putting all this together. And I watched it a few times. And to me, it's the voice. It's the voice. I don't feel like that's real. Like I've never had a conversation with Sarah. I don't know what she sounds like, but that sounds like a voice trying to sound sad and dramatic. That is my opinion. You do not have to agree with me. And it's okay if you don't agree with me. All right. But I definitely, if you're watching this, especially on the recap, make sure to, drop me what you think on this. But now let's talk about the part that the public didn't see at first. What was happening behind closed doors while Sarah was performing her grief online, possibly performing her grief online. From day one, investigators were suspicious. There were just too many red flags. There was no sign, again, of forced entry into the house, y'all. There's nothing stolen, no evidence of a break-in, and no reason to believe anyone outside the family was involved. Forensics showed the victims were shot while they were asleep, which meant likely sometime after midnight. Meanwhile, Sarah's own behavior during the initial interview raised eyebrows. She gave inconsistent statements. She couldn't clearly explain her whereabouts during key hours. She had no visible signs of trauma or distress the night of the murders. Police pulled phone records, message logs, search history, and what they found painted a very different picture of Sarah Grace Patrick. Now, something else that's interesting that investigators say is that information gathered in interviews may point to additional individuals who either had knowledge of or played a role in these murders. We're not done, the sheriff said. We're still following threads. Here's where things start to get a little bit more disturbing, though. Because Sarah didn't just react to the murders, she curated the reaction. She posted frequent TikToks, some tearful, some poetic, some hauntingly vague. One of her captions read, "I miss you so much. I'm lost without you. Why did this happen to us?" And yes, she even messaged, you might have heard this, a true crime influencers asking them to cover the case. While her parents' bodies were barely cold, she was pitching her own story to content creators. Think about that. I'm going to play another video for you guys in a minute. So again, for my TikTok friends, if you want to jump over to YouTube to see it. And this one's going to be of Mama Todd, because she reached out to Mama Todd as well. Now, if you don't know who Mama Todd is, because you're watching, I mean, TikTok, you definitely know who she is, or I would imagine. But just in case you don't, you're watching this later. She's a TikTok creator with 12.3 million followers, a woman who lost her own son to murder. And Sarah reaches out to her saying that she needs a mama right now. Now, Mama Todd didn't see this message until later, after the arrest. And then she responded. And I'm going to let you hear what she has to say. Okay? Because Mama Todd laid into her, y'all. And again, if you're on TikTok, you might want to jump over to YouTube for this. And again, if you are on YouTube for the first time, please make sure to hit that follow button. I can't stress that enough. I'm trying to grow this, but let me play this for you.
First and foremost, to the victim's family and friends, my heart goes out to you. It's a different kind of strength having to deal with your grief and deal with a case like this and deal with the why, what reason, all of those things, and then have to face the person who did this to your family member or your friend. So let me back up. I posted a video yesterday, and somebody has said, I can't remember word from word, but it says something like this in it said, "How does it feel knowing a 17-year-old was following you that committed this homicide?" And I'm thinking, what in the world is that? And trust and believe, we get the wildest comments. I'm thinking they must be on the wrong page or something, because I didn't know nothing about that. And a lot of our comments are filtered because they're just horrible and terrible. So I think I replied back and I said, "Excuse me?" Because I just did not understand. Fast forward to last night, I come across that true crime creator that was talking about how that 17-year-old had asked her to do the story on her her mom and dad's homicide. And the true crime creator was like, of course, absolutely, and did. She might even did 2 videos for all we know. And then it dawned on me, okay, I went to the account. That's how I seen that I had a message. And I looked, and it said, I'm really going through it. I need a mom. Talking about to me. Need a mom after she did what she did to her own. Now, 2 things that shook me to my core was coming to me claiming you need a mom after what you did to your own. And not just your mama, but your, I want to say stepdad. And then number 2, knowing dang well how my son was taken was due to a murder. I try not to talk about my son's case, but literally we are once again for like the 5th or 6th time preparing ourselves to be in the same courtroom with the person who was accused of taking my son's life. To which this family is going to do the same exact thing. The same exact thing. I can't find the right words to explain to you the type of strength it takes to have to be in the same vicinity as the person who took your family member's life. It's almost like taunting, reaching out to that true crime creator, asking to do the survey on it, knowing dang well she did it. Reaching out to me, asking for a mom. That is a different kind of evil. It is sociopathic. And to that family, my heart is with you, because what you're going to have to go through now, y'all need all the love and strength anybody can give to y'all, and my heart goes out to you. It is proof that you do not know who is behind these phones like this. You don't know what type of person it is. Just please don't forget that. Man, I wish I could hug that entire family right now.
Look, I'm watching on TikTok and Instagram. I'm watching your comments, and I'm seeing on YouTube. And look, I realize that some of y'all might not be the biggest fans of Mama Tot, and that is fine. That's irrelevant in this situation, okay? Because what is relevant here is that Sarah Grace Patrick reached out to her right after allegedly taking the life of her mother and stepfather and says, hey, I need a mama right now, okay? And what Mama Tot says in that is that it's sociopathic, right? And I agree. If this is what you just did, and you're reaching out to her, a creator with 12.3 million followers, to try to share your story, saying I need a mama right now, when you're the one who possibly is, accused of taking their lives, it's messed up. It's messed up. Okay. And at the end of the day, her son, Mama Tot's son, still was murdered. Okay. At the end of the day, again, you don't have to like her. You don't have to appreciate her. You don't have to respect her. You don't have to do anything. You don't. None of that's relevant here in this particular situation. In this particular situation, this was incredibly manipulative, as Brenda just said, twisted, right? Messed up. So let's go on. Because what we saw from Sarah, what people saw from Sarah immediately after, wasn't grief, or didn't feel like grief. It felt like a campaign, a story that was being shaped and molded in real time for an audience, for social media. And it was working. At least it did for a while, because she was getting sympathy. She was getting follows. She was getting DMs from strangers. But the more she posted, the more the cracks began to show. And then on July 8th, everything changed. There we go. Sorry, I didn't mean to put that one. Let me get rid of this. I meant to put that up there. Why is it showing? Forget it. There we go. There we go. Everything changed. July 8th, a week ago, pretty much. Everything came to a head. Police showed up at Sarah's house and arrested her. Even though Sarah placed that 911 call in February, her arrest didn't come until nearly 6 months later. Investigators say that gap was spent meticulously building a case with digital trails, witness statements, and forensic analysis. She was charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault, and then was taken to a Georgia detention center. And it has been agreed that she will be tried as an adult. Prosecutors revealed that there is, quote, mountains of digital and physical evidence against her. The sheriff described the case as supported by digital and otherwise, not just fingerprints or phone records, but online behavior, messages, deleted content, and possibly search history. Now, remember, she had continued living in the home with her little sister for months after the murders. And that's kind of where it hits a little bit harder, right? Because the deception didn't stop after the trigger was pulled. It kept going through every social media post, every news interview, and even during her eulogy. So a question that you guys have been asking, that I've seen you guys asking everywhere, is why? What's her motive? What could possibly drive a 17-year-old girl to kill her own mother and stepfather in cold blood? Now, one thing about motives is interesting is that you don't always have to have a motive. Brian Koberger is a good example. We don't know his motive. Not really, not yet. There's speculation. And in a lot of cases, you don't know the true motive. Maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't. Because as of right now, though, there's no official motive released by police. But psychologists and crime analysts do have theories. And let's talk about some of those. There could have been a breakdown in relationship with her parents, possibly discipline, control, or resentment. Did she feel stifled, pushed too hard, controlled? Could there have been something more sinister going on? I'm going to come back to that in a moment with a comparison. There's another theory. Online addiction and validation. Sarah was extremely online, constantly on TikTok, constantly performing. Could the validation that she would get from followers have become more important than the people in her life? Some experts also suggest that the behavior matches signs of NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, lack of empathy, desire for attention, calculated manipulation. This is something that I have a lot of experience with because both my parents are narcissists, and my mom is exactly what I just described, especially with calculated manipulation. Then the funeral eulogy, the selfies, the influencer outreach. It's the behavior of someone who wanted to control the narrative, not someone who broke under guilt, someone who wanted to star in the tragedy. But I want to make sure that I bring something up because this is very important. I don't want to forget the youngest person in this story. Sarah's now 6-year-old half-sister, who was 5 at the time when she found the bodies. Because remember, at 5 years old, she is the little kid, who discovered the bodies. She will never be the same. Never. She was the one who lived in that house for weeks under the care of her sister, who is now accused of the crime. This little girl is now in state custody. And in my opinion, one officer said it, and I fully agree. The most tragic figure in this whole story is that little girl. And they're right. Because whether or not Sarah is found guilty, that little girl has lost everything. Everything. Her mother, her father, her sister, her innocence, her trust. My daughter just turned 6 on July 5th. I can't imagine what that would do. My heart breaks for that child. The whole family, but especially that little girl. Because what she went through is the type of damage that lasts a lifetime. Right? Now let's get into the legal side of things. Sarah Grace Patrick has been charged as an adult, despite the fact that she was 17 at the time of the killings. This is legal in Georgia. In fact, Georgia has one of the harshest juvenile justice systems in the country, especially for violent crimes like murder. Prosecutors can totally bypass the juvenile court, just entirely. And remember, she's been charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault, and potentially more if evidence of planning or accomplices emerges. She's currently being held without bond, and court records indicate prosecutors might seek life without parole. That's the maximum under Georgia law. And unless her attorneys negotiate a deal or mount a serious psychological defense, she could spend the rest of her life behind bars. So what's Sarah's defense going to be? Well, obviously, it's too soon to tell, and we don't have public statements from her legal team yet. But based on similar cases, here are the likely possibilities. Mental health defense. They might argue diminished capacity, trauma, or emotional instability, something that could reduce her culpability or push for treatment over incarceration. No direct evidence or somebody else did it. If there's any wiggle room in forensics, the defense may try to introduce doubt, maybe suggest someone else had access, but based on the DA statements, that's kind of a long shot. There's also a plea deal to avoid trial, which we just saw with Brian Koberger, right? If the evidence is overwhelming, Sarah might plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, possibly life with parole after something like 30 years. But make no mistake, y'all, prosecutors are confident. They've publicly said that they're not done yet, and additional arrests haven't been ruled out. So there might be more to the story than just Sarah. Now, Sarah is being represented by a public defender she has no high-powered legal team. There is no GoFundMe campaign for her, and don't any of you guys start one. Just a court-appointed attorney preparing for one of the most difficult defenses imaginable. If convicted, like I said, she's facing life in prison without the possibility of parole. Not 20 years, not probation, life. She is 17, meaning she could spend the next 70 years or more behind bars. Now, when this story first broke, the public rallied around Sarah. She was seen as a young woman, young girl who lost everything, a girl coping with the absolute unthinkable. People commented things like, "You're so strong, sweet girl. Your mom is looking down on you. This is heartbreaking. I'm sorry for your loss." And now these same followers are stunned. Some are angry, others confused, many feel manipulated. It's what you might call a moral whiplash. Because it's not just that a murder happened, it's that the alleged killer used social media to control the narrative and pull on people's emotions. It's a new kind of true crime, y'all, a new kind of horror. This is not something that we have seen before. Now, I'm about to play something else for you guys. So this is the warning for the TikTok people who want to jump over and make sure that you hear this. Because I want to play something else for you guys here in a second. So when this all happened, Sarah's grandfather, her mom's dad, okay, Sarah's grandfather, was offering a $5,000 reward for anybody who did these killings. He called it cold-blooded. It's anybody who could do something like this. It was just absolutely cold-blooded. And then his granddaughter was arrested. And then he says he's going to stand behind her. Now, there was an interview done by News Nation it was played on the Banfield show the other night, maybe last night. I don't know. I'm going to play that for you right now, but shout out to Banfield for that. I'm going to play this for you right now, and I want you to hear what the grandfather has to say, because this is going to give you some more information into evidence, kind of what they know, what he as a family member has been told. So we're going to play that right now. Again, TikTok, if you want to jump over, and make sure, of course, hit the follow on all the platforms. If you're coming in late, you come in late and don't get over in time to hear this. This is saved on YouTube. You can go back and rewind it, watch it from the very beginning, whatever you need to do. All of these are. So let me play it.
Any judgment at this point. They have to release the evidence, and I don't understand what evidence they have. I think most of it, from what I understand, is circumstantial. And, she's my granddaughter. I have to stand behind her. She swears her innocence.
So have you had a chance to speak to the detectives?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've talked to them at length, and they don't release any information. If they had something concrete, they would have arrested her a whole lot sooner. I mean, why wait months after everyone's sort of on hold and waiting to see what evidence they have for saying that Sarah did this? I just can't imagine her. I mean, she's a sweet young lady. She's always been a wonderful little girl. What can I say? I just can't imagine her doing such a horrific thing, especially to her mother. She and her mother were very close, and they were doing great at that time. They had a great relationship.
Did they have conflicts in the past?
Mother-daughter always have their disagreements, but nothing serious. I just don't know. I know James had a very, strange past, that he was a convicted felon, and he, I think at one time was part of a motorcycle gang.
Do you think James's past might be something to look into?
I reflected that to the detectives early on. I said, I wonder if this is, James' past and coming back to haunt him.
Have you had a chance to speak to Sarah Grace?
I spoke to her after she was in jail. She called me. Of course, she was very upset. I mean, she always looked to me more as a father figure. She was begging for me to help. And I explained to her, there's nothing I can do at this point.
Wow, so her one phone call came to you, sir?
Yeah, she was very upset. I mean, she just was begging, please help me get out of this mess. And I told her just to do what they say and be cooperative, and we'll do what we can.
It's an unbelievable step to take, but it's not one that police and investigators take lightly to move forward with charging documents and arrest warrants. Of course, innocent until proven guilty, but that really is a leap for the police to take if they didn't feel like they had a case, right?
Yeah. Well, their answer to me was, she's the only one who could have done it. I said, well, what proof do you have? And he said, well, I can't tell you that, but I could just say that she's the only one who could have done it.
All right, so you guys heard that. He went to defending her. He's standing by her, says that he doesn't believe necessarily that he did. Now, here's the thing, right? She's been accused. We don't know what evidence that they have. Strange behavior from a 17-year-old kid isn't out of the ordinary, right? But I find something that he mentioned very interesting, which is James's past, right? That James, was a convicted felon, was in a motorcycle gang, and could that have been part of it? And we don't know, right? But he said he's going to stand behind her. But now we have to ask some of the bigger questions. What happens when grief becomes content? What does it mean when our first instinct after tragedy is to go live? And what happens to kids growing up online performing their emotions for strangers every hour of every day? Because Sarah Grace didn't just allegedly commit a crime, if the allegations are true, obviously, right? She curated it, she narrated it, and she monetized the sympathy. And in the process, she reminded all of us that social media doesn't reflect reality. Sometimes it hides it. Now, here's where we are as a quick recap. A 17-year-old girl, once seen as a grieving daughter, now sits behind bars awaiting trial for the murder of her mother and stepfather. A now 6-year-old sister is traumatized, first by the horror of what she saw, but then by the arrest of the person that she ran to for help. A family was shattered, and a digital world was left questioning how something that looked like sorrow could have been something else entirely. Now, this case isn't just at this point about guilt and innocence anymore, is it? It's about image. It's about control. It's about the way tragedy, emotion, and performance collide in a time where followers and sympathy can carry real power. Right? But there's one question we haven't touched yet, which is why? Why? What could drive a seemingly happy teenager? That's what the grandfather said, right? To commit such a violent act against the people who raised her. There's no motive, guys. There's no public statement from Sarah explaining what happened. All we have is silence and speculation and behavior that doesn't always add up. And it's in that silence that we start to kind of think about other cases. Ones that looked one way on the surface and turned out to be something else entirely, right? A lot of y'all, as we've been talking about this, says this reminds me of Gypsy Rose. And maybe a little. I don't see it to the degree that I see it as others, but maybe a little, right? With the lies, the manipulation, and the trying to hide, the aftermath for sure. But I'll tell you what it put me in mind, because I've been covering this case pretty extensively. And those of you who know what I'm going to say might not know what I say, but in 1989, the world watched Eric and Lyle Menendez go to trial for killing their parents in their Beverly Hills mansion. 2 clean-cut brothers, cold-blooded killers is what the headline said. But in their trial, a different story came out, one of childhood abuse, coercion, deep psychological trauma. And very few people believed them at the time. They were mocked, dismissed, labeled as entitled and greedy. But just this past week, right, July 2025, a judge ruled that the Menendez brothers' claims of abuse and supporting evidence were, in fact, credible. a decision that could now reshape the case that defined an era where they've been sitting behind bars for 36 years. Now, I want to be very, very crystal clear about something. I'm going to come back to this Menendez thing in a second. Okay? Murder is never okay. Let me repeat that. Murder is never okay. I don't care. Look, abuse is abuse, and that's not okay either. But there are other ways to handle it outside of just taking somebody's life, especially double homicides. Okay? And I realize that when you're young, you might not see it in that moment, and you might make these decisions. You might contemplate them, whatever the case is, because that's what happened with Menendez. That sounds like that's what happened here. And we don't know Sarah's background, right? We don't know what was going on behind closed doors, if anything. But it's my personal opinion that if he is the one who did this, seemingly happy kids, unless they're complete psychopaths, don't kill their parents. They just don't. And I'm not putting blame on her, on the Brox at this point in time. I'm not, because we don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Okay? We don't know. Maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. And like I said, as far as we know, again, Sarah's case is not the same as the Menendez brothers. At this point, there has been no claim of abuse, no legal filings pointing to a traumatic past. But like the Menendez story, this one forces us to ask some hard questions. What happens when grief looks performative? Because the Menendez brothers were performative, right? To the press, to the cameras, at the funeral. What happens when someone plays the role of the grieving daughter only to become the prime suspect? And how often do we, the public, get it wrong? I'm going to tell you something right now. I read a lot of the comments y'all post. I'm not saying y'all as a general term. A lot of you guys are wrong and very confident about it. A lot of times. I'm not saying anybody specifically in any of these live, but there are a lot of y'all, a lot of people out there who feel very confident that their opinions are facts. Right? It's just one of those things. Sarah posted tribute video. She cried in front of the camera. She told mourners that her mother had a beautiful soul. And at the end of her eulogy, she just said, "I'm sorry." So again, what's that? Grief? Guilt? Something calculated? We don't know. Not yet, at least. But if the Menendez case taught us anything, it's this. Sometimes the most shocking parts of the story is what we don't see at first. And sometimes the truth doesn't come out until decades later. So what happens next with Sarah Grace Patrick? Well, we have to wait for the trial, for the evidence, for the truth, whatever that turns out to be, if we ever know the full truth. But one thing is already certain. The story has changed the way we think about crime, grief, performance, and each other. Because whether or not she's found guilty in court, the world has already passed judgment. Now, for those of y'all watching this on the recap, whatever, let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe that Sarah planned the trial? You guys can answer it now, too. Do you believe that Sarah planned this? Do you think social media warped her sense of reality? Or is there more to it than we know? And I would be remiss if I didn't say at this point, again, make sure to like this stream, like the live, like the whatever, like the videos on it. Subscribe or follow, especially if you've jumped over from TikTok. Please subscribe here. It's cost you nothing to do it. It's free. Helps tremendously support me, and I appreciate it as I'm trying to grow, because we're going to be doing more of these and breaking down more things here. And I'm going to be here every week as much as I can, right? So if you want to make sure that you get these deep, honest breakdowns like this one, like the one we did yesterday, I'm here every week, right? So until next time, guys, stay curious, stay critical. Thank you all for the support, and take care. I will see y'all tomorrow. Bye, everyone.